Why do most black people have the same religion as these white nationalist, racist, white supremacist type people?
People talk about race fatigue. I have stupidity fatigue.
If we look at another people, how come they God gives them prosperity and our God doesn't? There's a lot of black men in America today that get white Jesus tatted on them. They get the white Jesus chain. That's why we teach the black man, we teach you are God.
We know Jesus isn't white, but Farad Muhammad was a white man.
I'm today years old. That influenced the Nation of Islam.
The teacher who they said is the Mahdi or the Messiah for them that taught Elijah Muhammad is a white man from Europe. Hey Siri, pull up a picture of Master Farad Muhammad, please. That's their God.
Wow. Fraternities and sororities. Like everyone is denouncing.
Yeah.
I'm denouncing.
Yeah.
You know, all it's connected to Greek spirituality. What is your vantage point on it?
Oh boy, here we go. So,
This is The Deep End with Lecrae.
All right. This is what I've been waiting for. This one of them episodes I've been waiting for because there is so many things happening in society and in culture, and there are so few voices that can articulate and give godly perspective on it all. And this next guest is probably one of the most profound thinkers, leaders, subject matter experts, theologians. I'm gassing them up, and I don't gas my guests up because a lot of times I want to have an unbiased, objective perspective. But I've been knowing Dr. Eric Mason for probably great. How long has it been? At least 15 years.
when was those retreats in Denton? That was 2002.
Yeah,
So that's like 23 years.
23 years. So
Yeah.
Dr. Eric Mason, lead pastor of Epiphany Fellowship Church, founder, lead pastor of Epiphany Fellowship Church, doctorate in theology,
Hilarious.
cultural, voice, one of the most currently relevant voices right now in terms of theological perspective, specifically in the black community. And man, just an advocate for the church, man. And I greatly appreciate you. You have no idea. You know what I'm saying? But you also just a dope enthusiast, a hip hop aficionado, a lot of things. And so, man, there's so many things we could talk about. But I feel like no matter what somebody throws at you, you just you got it. You know what I'm saying? Before I dive in, I'm just curious, were you always a voracious reader? DC, you know what I'm saying? What sparked this? Where did this come from?
Well, first off, thanks for having me on the pod.
Yeah.
Feel honored, and we proud of Lecrae in these streets.
Hilarious.
We ride for Lecrae, for his journey. I remember when you was driving that hoopty car.
Oh yeah.
And pulling up to Bible study, and you Tadashi y'all rapping by the fireplace, and
Yikes.
And those were just pure days. So, and then to see so many of us that were in each other's orbit, Show and Bahati, Deuce, so many people that were all of us were each other's orbit, and how different ones of us have gone different places in ministry is just dope. So, blessings to you, man. Appreciate
Thank you, man.
So the question, it's interesting because I grew up with a learning disability, a severe learning disability. So I remember my mom, my teacher in front of we're not talking about parent-teacher conference. We talking about my mom is coming up to the school, and the teacher standing here, my mom standing here, and basically my teacher said, "Eric just can't learn." I'll never forget that. And so I kind of had this self-deprivation around learning for years, but then I did struggle. And I don't know what happened, but as I grew older, I don't know if God just healed me, but by the time I got into college, Well, what happened was I became a believer, but before I became a believer, I was around all of the things, all of the black identity stuff, early 90s in college, A Different Worlds on, Tribe Called Quest is, you got Poor Righteous Teachers. So I'm reading all this stuff. I'm listening to Farrakhan, Nation of Islam. So that's what kind of got me into reading first. But then when I became a believer, it was not a good time to become a Christian. Not on a black college campus at that time. That being a Christian was like, what? You too smart for that.
Yeah.
It was kind of like,
yeah.
you know the truth kind of thing. Reading Ruins of an Empire. Reading Destruction of Black Civilizations, 13 Crucified Saviors, 16 Crucified Saviors. So looking at all of those different books, Yale Old Africa, African Holistic Health, reading all that stuff, and Metanetta, and man, I've had to defend my faith. So I had to defend my faith so much, so it made me, I come from, I'm not a thug, but I grew up in the hood, but I was never a thuggy dude. But I don't like to lose stuff. So, and I don't like to feel like somebody, I don't like to feel bullied. I was bullied growing up, so I had that bully chip on my shoulder. So my studying was so I wouldn't get bullied on the college campus. So that's kind of how it started.
Yeah. There's so many people that I wish I could have you sit down and have a conversation with, because I think a lot of Christians they don't know how to match wits with a lot of stuff that's going on in society.
I hear that.
And it's kind of like they want an advocate, like somebody who could sit at the table, like, oh, I don't know what to say. Like, I would love for like you and Dr. Umar to just sit down and have a conversation, because I feel like you could answer questions. I mean, I feel like I feel fairly confident I could, but I know you could.
Yeah, I don't think he has questions though. I don't think he.
Okay.
That's the issue. I think he knows. And I think that, and this is respectfully, and I hope he sees this clip. I think like him, like, Nuri Muhammad, all of those cats, I don't think they want to, we offering Nuri Muhammad to sit down. I offered Umar to like sit down. It don't even have to be a debate. I just think that I was listening to Nuri Muhammad on another podcast, and I was just like, this is dated information about the church and about Nation of Islam, because y'all know y'all sinking. Like, so y'all know there's no successor. You know that there's no, but then you go over to Umar, you like, man, like, bro, you don't really understand black church history saying the stuff you're saying. You're like, where are the stats? Like, I would ask, where are the stats about the black church? 3 million a Sunday, where? Like, and so I'm just like, because average church is 50 people. So it irritates me, though, that we have such a bad reputation as the church that it's easy to slander us and nobody will defend us. And so I think that really that's the issue. And so that's why I've been on this whole rebranding the church thing, because I do think we don't just need a facelift. We need an authenticity overhaul, Yeah.
Speaking of rebranding the church, it's not a hot topic as much as it was when the movie first came out, but the Sinners movie.
Yeah.
So I saw the movie. I had my thoughts on it. You were asking on your on Threads, I think it was, what do y'all think about this movie? Should we see it? Should we not? And I gave
that joint was thorough.
I just tried to give my perspective on it.
The thing you gave was thorough. I hadn't even seen the movie yet, but I felt like it was balanced and thoughtful.
Okay.
Yeah.
And have you seen it since?
Yeah, I saw it last night. I told you. I texted you.
Okay.
I saw it last night.
I didn't know. Okay. So give us what did you see?
I mean, you got to understand. I'm like, it's a lot. It's like kind of when Jay-Z was on the Breakfast Club and he was mad because the Billboard people or whoever critiqued his album in 2 days. He said, how you critique an album in 2 days?
Fair.
But what I would say, though, is there was things that I was able to capture.
Okay.
So first off, I'm a fan of vampire movies.
Okay.
I mean, like, if it's not witchcraft, like high-level witchcraft in it, like some shows
Me
that
too.
come out in the past.
I love like the Lost Boys.
All that stuff. Lost Boys, all of that.
Yeah.
And so I was just a fan of that. I'm a fan of old black culture in America. The style, the clothing.
Me too.
The vernacular.
Color Purple.
The ingenuity. The way we had to make something out of nothing. I was a fan of the twins being hustlers. Their hustle ethic You still see that in us. Our artisticness, our thought. So it was a lot in there.
Yeah.
I think people blew the voodoo thing out of proportion.
Okay.
I'm not talking about you. I was like, because I looked at it, I was like, it was a little something, but it wasn't I didn't feel like it was an overwhelming sentiment.
Yeah.
But the thing that I do, and I thought there was more of a church scene than it was. But the thing that it's just like kind of like the blaxploitation era.
Yeah.
Like if you go back to the blaxploitation era, you pull out, every time you see the preacher,
You
money
know
and
what you're
chicks,
gonna get.
which thank you, that wasn't this time. But then if it's not that, it's the other end of the spectrum where there's this sense of legalism and judgmentalism that I think when I was looking at the movie, I was like, man, we just can't get like we don't have to be perfect. But is there in art, and I don't expect non-Christians to do that, and I don't know who's Christian or non-Christian.
Yeah.
But I just like, man, is there in art, why is there such, particularly when it comes to presenting Black Christianity, Western Christianity in the States, and somebody's gonna watch this anyway. You know what I'm about to say. And it's always kind of just like a negative tinge. Either it's legalistic and not engaged in the world, or it's worldly. And so I think that's the only thing that I would say about it. I like the movie. So I would have to see it again to process it a little bit more. But from what I was able to process, I mean, the landscape of them in those cars going through the cotton fields driving, the cinematography was nuts.
I love the movie. I saw it twice.
Cinematography was nuts.
I just as a Christian, I was like, I would love to sit down with Ryan Coogler and say, hey, what has been your experience with the church? Because there's no movie I think Sho Baraka said, there's no movie is agnostic. So it's kind of like, all right, what do you think? What like, it's not just a canvas. So I would just be curious. But like you said, I don't believe Ryan Coogler's a Christian. So it's not like I'm expecting him to have an accurate portrayal of everything.
But one of the things I've listened to some of the interview tours on Purpose, and I can't remember what interview he was in, but he was talking about depicting the church of that time.
Yeah. And
one of the things that's interesting that I do know about following him, because I love his work. I cried when Black Panther first came on. When the first one, I cried when they was coming into Wakanda. That was it. But he's very thoughtful about every single thing he puts into a movie. Every intersection, the horror component, the Black experience component, the religious component. I will say this. I forgot about this. So that scene where Preacher Boy was playing and singing, and it was like he went into kind of like, I'm not gonna say a trance, because I don't want to read that into the movie. And there was this sense of connecting our activities and disposition back to whether it was the experience we had in Africa or a spiritual experience that preceded Christianity in the way it's been. The way in its current incarnation to us, I thought it was interesting. I thought it was interesting. What did you think about that scene when it was kind of like all of these different components of different tribes and different things that were coming in there? That was kind of like saying hip hop, even the whole hip hop thing, and how the circle on the guitar is connects with the
That's the most controversial scene. It's the most polarizing scene for people. They love it or they hate it.
Yeah.
And so I like when people show but don't tell. So I felt like it was too telling. It was like, let me tell you about, it was so explicit. Like, this connects to the ancestors and connects to the future. And to me, I just thought, show me that connection more so than tell me exactly how it happened. From a spiritual vantage point, I just can't, like, I always wrestle with where's the tension between respecting and thinking about ancestors and then like necromancy. Like
I think that's important.
Yeah.
I think that we got a podcast coming out. The guy's going to give it to me. Shout out to Zanelle and those cats in Joburg that had us out a few weeks ago. Kazi Apologetics, I think it is. And so I didn't see. We were supposed to watch the movie while I was in South Africa. But they put me to work so bad. I was like, I can't. Y'all, you know how you in Africa, they trying to get you to do everything. So I was like, I'm tired, y'all. They went to see it. they did a podcast on it. It's interesting. And at the conference, 2 guys talked about it. Kolisa, I got to say it right, the click. I got to get it right. Kolisa. And another brother named Giff. They broke down African spirituality from their perspective as Africans. So it's interesting. So they look at us weird trying to go backwards into African spirituality. I have Nigerians in my church. They say the same thing. Ghanaians. They're like, why are y'all trying to connect with that?
Yeah.
Now, there is, I forgot the guy's name from Ghana. He's passed away, who wrote the book on Jesus in Africa. He wrote a book on that. And he tries to, Bantu and I were talking about it. So he doesn't try to demonize all African spirituality. He tries to say there is a redeemable cultural component that's in it.
Okay.
And so it's kind of like us being in a fraternity, you know. You know, the whole, it's like a witch hunt right now, you know? And so one of the things that I try to be careful of is the genetic fallacy, which the genetic fallacy is if y'all look it up. So it's basically a line of argumentation that says, if something began this way, it's always what it was. So if that's the case, we have to get rid of stuff in the Bible that God redeemed and utilized that was used for substandard means or demonic means, and he redeems it under Christ. And so I do think that we have to be careful, but I do think that because we've had dignity destruction in the Western Hemisphere, there's this narrative with us as blacks that's like white people took away our culture from us and gave us their culture, which part of that's true, cultural imperialism, but then they add Christianity to it in all of its forms,
Right.
not knowing that like they didn't force Christianity on us. You know, you could look in the book Slave Religion. That's like a historian that's not even a Christian that talks about it. Christianity was never forced on us. They were trying to, they were actually scared for us to get saved.
They kept pages out that Bible.
Yeah. But they were scared when the Quakers were first sharing the gospel with slaves, they started persecuting the Quakers, trying to get the Quakers out. Like, y'all can't share the gospel. Do you know if these Negroes find out that the gospel is about liberation of the whole person, we can't keep them in slavery? He said a real saved black person is the sanctification of a Christian soul. They would not be slavable. They wouldn't be enslavable because the gospel would so liberate them. They would see the hypocrisy, and so I think that that's true. So going back to the whole redeemability thing, it's like, you know, your boy back in the day that used to, you know, basically demonize hip hop. Like hip hop is you gotta say Christian. I know, and he gotta say Christian rapper versus hip hop, and it's like you can't say hip hop is fundamentally demonic. The question is are there redeemable components? Now, we can't say, okay, I'm gonna be a porn star and we're gonna redeem porn. You can't, because it's fundamentally fornication and adultery. So you can't redeem that. But you can redeem components of something that has brotherhood in it. You can redeem something that respects older people. I can respect the ancestors, but I don't have to worship the ancestors. I can remember the ancestors. There's a difference between ancestor worship and ancestor honor. Like I think that when black people hear us rebuking ancestor worship, it's almost, we're so messed up by the infestation of white supremacy on us. And it's not, I mean, this is not beating up white people, but I'm just saying there's been a number done on us differently than any other people who's been conquered. And I think that it's an automatic thought of, no, that's white people. That's the white man telling you. It's like, no. The Christian faith can critique my black culture.
Yeah. It has room to do that.
It has room to do that.
Yeah.
And that's not white people. That's God, the true and living God. And if God says something's off limits, it's off limits. I'm not going to try to make voodoo or hoodoo redeemable. Yeah. I'm not going to try to make... Now, if someone uses medicine that cultures always knew naturally help you, I'm going to take some lion's mane mushroom pills. That don't mean I'm going to put some bones on, say ra da da. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? But
Right.
but I'm gonna take milk thistle. I'm gonna drink matcha. I'm gonna use sage and different things. But if I burn sage, it's not gonna be because
You're worshiping.
I'm worshiping. So I got the name of Jesus for that. That's easy.
This is a scent.
This is a scent that God created. If
Well,
I
you
got
push the hot button with that one.
I got a crystal on one of my hats, and my wife was like, "Babe, I don't know." I said, "Babe, God made this crystal." I said, "Let's go to Revelation. Let's look at the priestly garment." I said, "Topaz and onyx and all of these different things. Yahweh made these as things to beautify the new Jerusalem." So I can enjoy this, but I don't believe that there's incantation and infused power or some type of vibration that's on this crystal. This is my God created this, and it's a decorative piece. So yeah.
So, all right, so listen, life does not happen bi-weekly. So why should your payday? The money you earn can be in your hands today. That's right. The money you earn can be in your hands today with Earnin. Now listen, what is Earnin? Earnin is an app that gives you access to your pay as you work, up to $150 per day with a max of $750 between paydays. So you download the Earnin app, you verify your paycheck, and then you access up to $150 a day as you work and leave an optional tip. Any money you access plus tips are automatically repaid from your next paycheck. So listen, school shopping's coming up. You got to get your kids some school supplies. You got bills to pay. You know your check is not here yet and you need the money now. Well, Earnin is the best opportunity for you to do it. So download Earnin today. It's spelled EARNIN in the Google Play or the Apple App Store. Now, when you download the Earnin app, type in the Deep End with Lecrae under podcast when you sign up. That helps the show to keep doing what we've been doing. So just remember to put the Deep End with Lecrae under podcast. Earnin is a financial technology company. It's not a bank. So the cash outs are based on your available earnings. Standard cash outs take 1 to 2 business days with no mandatory fees. Option to expedite your transfer for a fee, and tips are voluntary and do not affect the service. See the cash out user agreement for all the details, and services are not available in all states. In line of that, because now you got me wanting to go in 2 directions, but in light of what you just said, like certain things are redeemable.
Yes.
Like we just because like the world and the world system and Satan has said we're gonna lay claim to this,
Right.
doesn't mean they have real claim on it. It just means that that's the picture of it, right?
Yeah, because and I think even if you think about and we'll have to get into that deep, your transition, right? And some of the things that you wrestled through, you don't have to make a Christian version of something that's in the world to make it redeemable.
Mm-hmm.
In other words, I gotta make it. I gotta make something that's the same genre,
Yeah.
Christian in name, in order for it to be redeemable. And that's not. I don't believe that's what redeeming
It's not
the time
godly
means.
plumbing unless you call it Christian plumbing.
Absolutely. And so I believe that you have that side. But I do think that the wrestle is real, and it's okay to wrestle with it. I just think we got 2 extremes. We got people that are on witch hunts, right? That's just super legalistic, and I think in some ways they mean well and want to honor God. I think on the other side you got syncretism where they're trying to say there's no harm in this. And I think that those 2 extremes both need truth, both need the gospel. So yeah.
What would you say? Because this is a hot button that I've had to. It's made me reprocess a little bit because I'm like, wait a minute, what's going on? But fraternities and sororities, the consensus that's rising up right now, which we've seen this cycle before. We've been around long enough where it's like everyone is denouncing. I'm denouncing.
Yeah.
And it's connected to Greek spirituality and lots of different reasons people have for saying that they're denouncing. And I know you've done some extensive thoughts and given some perspective. What is your vantage point on it?
Oh boy, here we go. So let me before I answer that question, I want to say this: if God is influencing you to denounce anything that's not necessary in your life, whether it be a fraternity, whatever, denounce it. That's, I mean, cool. I do think I would say this. So I don't believe that our founder of our fraternity, Elder Watson Diggs, was like a warlock. That, like, this is what I believe happened based on the history I know and we all learned, is basically white fraternities didn't let us in. And so blacks created their own fraternities, basically. And I think that they created rituals that I think they created allegorical rituals that would be some type of, and I think it grew over the years, you know, and how it was done, and every chapter is different. And so I think that now, if there's authentic incantations in it, we can call that demonic, right? We can. However, you don't have to do everything that you're asked. You can say, I'm a believer and I'm not doing this. Or in your intake, whatever your intake process is like. Won't get nobody in trouble. And so I don't know. I denounced over 30 years ago. And I think it was good for me at the time not because of Kappa, because of me.
Yep.
Like, because I was into Kappa Alpha Psi, bro. And so I was, you know, in the ways that aren't fundamental to the fraternity.
Right.
You
It
understand what I'm
wasn't
saying?
a fraternity issue. It was a heart issue for
Absolutely,
you. Yeah.
absolutely. But back then, I demonized the fraternity. But I didn't realize God was working on me based on Ephesians 5. And so years later, like, I'm not active right now. I'm open to it, but I'm active in the sense of just financial. I'm not talking about anything else. But I have good relationships with my chapter brothers and stuff like that, my Sands, recipes to my number 3. But we don't, like, I'm not, like, they know and respect my faith. And a lot of them are now believers. And so nobody even really, we're not even thinking about an incantation or anything like that. And so the question is, so I think the question that people are going to ask, can a Christian join a fraternity or a sorority? I'll leave that up to your conscience and you and God working through that. And as you do it, doing it in a way that doesn't infringe upon Scripture or your conscience. And so that's what I say. Or just don't. If you have any, what we say in the old church, a check in your spirit, amen. You know, if you got a check in your spirit, don't do it. You know.
Yeah.
And so for me, I see fraternities, sororities like anything else that we as believers have to do. 1 Corinthians chapter 2 says the spiritual man discerns all things.
Yeah.
And so I think that, you know, Hebrews 5:11-14 said the mature person knows how to tell the difference between what's good and what's evil. So I'm leaving it up. I don't like always telling people, should Christians, certain things that I think are liberties, that Christians should do this or not do this. I want to say these are the cards.
Yeah.
Now, as you process with God, your community, and your own convictions, make a decision.
I felt that way for me, it was listening to music that I felt like didn't glorify God.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? There was a season in my life where it was like, I am being washed by this music.
Yeah.
And I'm not analyzing it. It's not like I'm being influenced by it. And it was like, I gotta leave it alone.
Yeah.
You know, but now that wouldn't be the case. I can listen to Mary J. Blige and I'm just fine.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't tell you to.
Right.
Because you got to know where you are with the Lord.
Yeah.
And so
I think we have to. My only thing with people, when they demonize anything or call it fundamentally flawed, you just got to be consistent. Apply that consistently, fam. Don't like pick and choose.
You can't work for Nike.
You can't go see sinners and denounce the fraternity. You can't. That's hypocritical to me.
Yeah.
You can't go to Starbucks.
Yeah. The siren.
You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm saying, if you're going to be consistent in it,
Yeah.
Don't like pick and choose what your obedience looks like when you utilize these principles as these things being fundamentally flawed. You can't even use the dollar bill if you like. You got to use all debits. Like use credit cards and debits because the dollar bill is full of occult symbolism. So I'm just kind of like.
That's true.
So is your transaction with money an incantation? Is it the mark of the beast? I mean, like, I could keep going with this.
That's good, man. See, this is what I'm saying. Like, it's you just thoughtful about stuff. One of your greatest works is the Urban Apologetics. And, I remember personally, before you wrote the book, I moved to, a very tough neighborhood in Memphis, Tennessee.
Mm-hmm.
And before I moved into the community, you were like, yo, check out these books. And you had me reading all these books, Urban Face of Mission and all these particular books. And then you went and started writing your own from your own experience and your own life. And with Urban Apologetics, I feel like you were answering a lot of questions that we had to come up against all the time in the hood, right? I go to the barbershop and I'm meeting Egyptologists and I'm meeting Hebrew Israelites and I'm like, what the heck do I say? How do I navigate this? And so you wrote a book like helping us to navigate this. And so I want to show you some clips.
Okay.
And just like
This should be fun.
Yeah, just get your
Before
takes.
you show the clip, I'm just telling you right now, you can never mention Memphis to me ever again. Not never mention it. Because every time you say Memphis, I think of that dude you told me about that went up in the white folk house that was in your neighborhood. Every time you tell me. You didn't have to tell the story, but all I see in my mind is that picture.
My renter, man. Yeah. Hey, man, you can't gentrify the hood too early. It might go bad for you. It went bad for my man. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I just want you to hear these takes on Black Christianity. And just get your vantage point. So, all right, let me load up the first one.
All right.
You got Christians that say, "Oh, follow us. We's the true religion." Boom. Muslims, follow us. We's the true religion. How do we know which one is true? How do I know I'm not worshiping no idol if I go take my shahada or if I go get baptized? How I know I'm not worshiping no idol God or no false God?
I say all of them have a common thread, the golden rule. Treat people how you want to be treated.
Right.
I was always taught we can argue religion after we free. Mm-hmm. Right? Because we ain't even free. What slaves look like arguing on the plantation about who's God?
Right.
They should be focused on the plan to get towards freedom. Well, Black people in America, if you believe in a higher power, you have to know that God wants you to do better than your circumstances right now. If we look at another people, how come they God gives them prosperity and our God doesn't? There's a lot of Black men in America today, to this day, and they're going to do it still. They get white Jesus tatted on them. Mm-hmm. They get the white Jesus chain. You understand me? What does that mean? That mean a white man your God. I don't care how you slice it, how you put it. That features that you put on there comes from a white family, right, that decided that they want their son to be the image of God. And we worship that to this day. That's why we teach the Black man, we teach you are God, right? We are, gods in the house of the Most High. Right, we're not the God. I didn't create everything on the planet, but I don't need to argue with you about religion. Right, because if I was also taught a good Christian is a good Muslim. Mm-hmm. Right, if you study the story of Jesus, the way he prayed like a Muslim. The way he lived like a Muslim. Right, he prostrated, he did salats. Right, he never said he was a Christian. It's a way of life. He never said I follow this religion. He just showed you how he lived.
Right,
interesting. But that's very compounded. So it's interesting that he talks about religion and being free, but then presents his religion. That's number one. Number two, how did the religious landscape end on the only religion that or faith tradition that he connected fundamentally to slavery after he said all of them we shouldn't even do that was Christianity, and us getting white man tatted on us, which whatever. Mm-hmm. And so I think that was very, very interesting. They try to say Jesus wasn't a Christian. Well, Muhammad wasn't a Muslim, and he didn't say. In other words, people that are a follower of a particular faith, the person who's the preeminent one of it isn't called after that particular thing. And so you know what I'm saying. So Jesus they try to say Jesus was a Muslim, but in the Quran it said Allah has no son. No, Allah has no children, and so the Bible says Jesus, our Father who art in heaven. So if he was a Muslim, he's violating the Quran. But it's funny that the Quran teaches that they should be listening to what the gospel, the Jahil, I forgot what it's called, but they call it a particular word, the gospel and the Torah. But then when you tell them listen to the gospel and the Torah, and you start explaining it to them, then they end up saying, well, it's corrupt. And I'm saying, well, Muhammad had access to the same manuscript families that we use now for our translations. So the Bible hasn't been changed or corrupted. And so when I listen to him talking about it's so much compounded in his statement while he's just presenting religion. So I think it's funny that he's saying don't choose a religion until we're free, but then he presents a religion. So I think it's funny.
That's good. He's not done. Hold on, I got another one. I got another one for you because I'm really curious on your takes on some of this stuff. I was at a conference and he was there and I was listening. And I was like, wow, this is like we are really eating this up. And I was like,
but even before we go to that, like he talked about Jesus being white. We know Jesus isn't white, right? But Farad Muhammad was a white man.
I'm today years old.
Master Farad Muhammad, the teacher who they said is the Mahdi or the Messiah for them that taught Elijah Muhammad that learned from Noble Drew Ali in Detroit, is a white man from Europe. When you pull up a picture of Farad Muhammad's a white man.
Where influenced the Nation of Islam.
Yes, he's the procurator of the supreme wisdom in the Nation of Islam. Elijah Muhammad's and they said he had to come as a white man in order to fool white people so that he could teach us. So their incarnation was actually white. So who really has the white man's religion?
And the white Jesus that he's speaking of is in interpretation that European painters made.
Absolutely, it's iconography.
Yeah, it's not the actual picture
but
of Jesus.
But they got actual picture of Farad Muhammad.
Yikes.
Hold on. Hey Siri, pull up a picture of Master Farad Muhammad, please. That's him. Master Farad Muhammad. Thank you. I'm gonna pull it up. There it is. Hey Siri, pull up a picture of Master Farad Muhammad, please. There we go. Master Farad Muhammad. That's their God.
Wow. That's crazy.
Look in the camera, y'all. So
and hey.
And we're not color, you made color matter. We didn't make it matter.
Yeah.
Right? So we're not saying whatever. We're just saying you can't say one thing to us and then don't realize that your God is a white man.
Don't demonize white people and then white Jesus and then you have that's right. Okay, so check this one out. Very interesting.
All right.
When I studied Christianity or the Bible, right? And the whole thing about the Bible is I was taught that, it's not that it's wrong, but it's a book that's been tampered with.
Yes,
right?
Of course.
And so if you have the consciousness to be able to go into the Bible and filter it for the good that you're going to learn from it, because there's a lot of game in there. So I don't like people that be like, nah, fuck the Bible. There's a lot of knowledge in there. Right? And that's some high level game. That's going to give you some of those secrets you can utilize to unlock. But what was it about? Christ energy. It was never about religion. Right? Like I'm going on my Jesus year this year. You understand me? And that Christ energy is different. That's when you locked into consciousness. That's when you always living in that way. He was a revolutionary, if anything.
Right.
He was flipping over tables. He was telling people what they had to do. He was going against everything. So if you consider yourself to be a Christian, then how come you don't live with that Christ energy? Right? If you consider yourself to be a black Muslim, shit, move as Malcolm did. Move as the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan or Elijah Muhammad. Move like that then. So for me, don't just try to follow it, become it, right? Become a living example of it.
Right.
It's interesting. That brother's all over the place. It's been tampered with. And I always say, where? I'm like, are there variant readings and stuff like that? Yeah, but we can we can pretty much do the work to get to the original manuscripts. You know, I mean, and we got over 5,000, you know, copies of. I mean, so the it's been well preserved for us to be able to have. But it's just interesting though that they have people. All of us, you know, we have to be careful of this, which I think he's doing. They have a reductionistic view of Jesus Christ. So I think in
he's too small.
Mainline church, he's either the compassionate hippie, you know, that, you know, the traveling hippie. On the other side, you got the warlord, you know, and so it's like Sho said, maybe it is both. You know what I'm saying? And so, we got a big Christ, and he's pretty complicated.
Yeah.
And what we mean by complicated is he's loving and he's wrath. You know what I'm saying? He's merciful and he's mighty. You know, so it's not either. And I do think that we reduce Jesus to the Jesus we like the most. You know, and if we love, then we say Jesus is just love, which he's way more than that.
Why do you think so when I went to this conference, and it was about financial empowerment within the Black community.
Yeah.
And there were a lot of people from the Black conscious movement there, and it was extremely popular, especially amongst Black men. What is happening? What do you feel like is going on in our culture to where this Black conscious movement is so popular amongst Black men?
Let me ask this question: how are they dressed at the conference?
The men?
Everybody, and overwhelming. How are they dressed?
I would say like normal, like not business attire.
Was it like dashikis and unks? And
I would say some of the Black conscious movement people, yes, that's how they were dressed. But the onlookers, just locks. I mean, your average people, but they're intrigued by it.
I've never met a conscious community person that's built an institution for Black people. I just have heard them talk about it. But we can call the roll in the Black church. You look at Abyssinian in New York, when all those Blacks were locked out of their ability to buy housing, guess what Abyssinian Baptist Church did? They created banks. If you look at if you go to every single location on the map where the Black massacres were, you seen that map before? The massacre map?
I haven't.
And so it's a map, right? That
I can pull it up.
yeah. Black massacre. Black massacres map in the United States. So this map shows every massacre that happened where there was economic development for Black people between 1906 to 1922.
That's crazy.
Now, of course, you're going to have Tulsa in there. You're going to have Wilmington. Look up you got Washington, D.C. You got New York, Philadelphia, Detroit. The latest one, Detroit, was 1943. But, somewhere in the 1800s. So, look. So, when I was working on Woke Church, one of my books, I asked a historian at my church, I said, hey, I'm doing something on Greenville section of Oklahoma. Can you still looking at that map, huh?
Oh, no, go ahead. I'm listening.
Thought you looking at that map.
Yeah.
I said, how many churches, is there anywhere I can find out how many churches were in Greenville? And she said, oh, you don't have access to this, but this is a history. Professors, they got access to peer research, basically. So she sent me this thing, and she says, just look through it. And I looked through it. It's 23 churches in the Greenville section of Tulsa. And I asked her, I said, is there any way I can connect the economic development of Black Wall Street to those churches? She said, I'll show you some stuff, but I can guarantee you there would be no Black Wall Street without the Black churches. And then I started researching, and as you research, you'll find out that all of these everywhere where this Black economic success was, at the bedrock of it was the Black church. And the reason why so what did they do when they destroyed Greenville? They burned the churches. They burned the churches because they knew that the church was the mechanism to build economic development. Now, the question they're going to ask is, why isn't the church doing that now? Right? Because when the civil rights movement happened, our needs were decentralized. So there was no need for the black church institutionally, because black people, once we got access to everything else, we didn't really we didn't focus in on seeing our decentralization from access, and therefore what the black church was creating was on the decline. There were outliers. Like, you had churches that were still doing things like schools and credit unions and all different types of things. But after the civil rights movement, and even up to now, even when we do stuff, there's limited activity when it comes to our after school program. We probably have 50. I'm pretty sure we got more than that kids signed up. But there's so many after school programs that are just out in the world that everybody's not sending them to the church for everything. And so there's kind of this expectation for the church to rescue the black community from everything. Like, it's like every problem that the black people have is the church's problem to fix, which no other faith tradition has that level of pressure on. Not even our white siblings and Chinese siblings and Asian siblings, Latino siblings. They don't have the pressure on them to build institutions for their people. They're expected to integrate into the world, but a lot of people don't realize the role of the black church now is not really merely to build institutions. It's inspired institution builders. And so I think that our call is which we've done, which we've done, everything from the art and the entrepreneurialism. There's so much of what the black church has done that's actually inspired the people that actually do it. I think that's more powerful than having everything housed. You know how it is in Texas. You got, and there's nothing wrong with that, but everything is on the church's campus. I tend to think that it's more beautiful to have a Lydia that comes to faith in Philippi, and she's already has a fashion company. She gets saved, let the small group meet in her house, you disciple her, and she go to Center City, downtown Philippi, with art galleries and art, and she's infused with the gospel. She's able to create jobs, but influence culture. Yeah, I think that's more powerful than just the church housing everything.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's really good. I got another one though.
Yeah,
because you giving great perspective, and I think these are issues that are prevalent in the black community right now. Like, there's a lot of backlash and a lot of like issues that people raise, and so I'm just curious. It's good to have great thoughts on it.
Yeah.
So TikTok.
The grandparents say tick tick.
Yeah. Here we go.
Why do most black people have the same religion as these white nationalist, racist, white supremacist type people? Why do we think that it's good for us when they stole everything about us, made us forget our languages and our own religions and our own things, and then forced us to be Christians? And this is why I believe that Christianity is witchcraft. It is a spell. They told you your religions, your spirituality, the shit that you had before you got colonized was demonic. And we still believe them.
That's interesting. So we know that, first off, Christianity was in Africa
long
before the transatlantic slave trade. It was in Egypt and Ethiopia. I mean, if you look at most of the councils, you had to find the white people there. The Council of Nicaea was a lot of Egyptians and Turkish and Berber cats. You know what I'm saying? So that's just a misnomer. And again, the whole idea that Christianity was forced on us, they gotta stop. That's a bad narrative. Was a false form of Christianity later propagated and controlled? Yes. But Christianity wasn't beat into us. There's not that I know of, any narrative where slaves were getting Christianity beat into them. And so I think that, like, that's the witchcraft. To me, Paul says, how did you let them bewitch you? And what were they bewitching you with in Galatians 3:1? Bewitch means to have witchcraft, a spell put on you. In the Bible, a spell is not just an incantation. it's anything that draws your mind away from the way God does things. So it's trying to get illegitimate access to a legitimate means without God. So whenever somebody tells you to keep the law to be to remain saved, Paul calls that witchcraft, because you're trying to get access to God without God's current means of connectivity. That's why he calls it witchcraft. And rebellion is the spirit of witchcraft.
Yeah.
And so I don't think we realize. I don't think we realize that. But what's happening is they don't realize that their perspective on Christianity is influenced by white supremacy, not black identity.
Explain, break that down. What do you?
Because they're like, white supremacy has had such an effect on their view of Christianity, because it comes from a white supremacist perceived impact on Christianity, which is a false form of Christianity that Frederick Douglass talks about. And so they don't even realize that their response is coming from there, and their desire for their African spirituality comes from a reaction to white supremacy,
right?
Not an authentic desire to just be to understand it and understand what it is. That's why I was saying earlier, they find it very, very strange, but it's actually happening in Africa now. So what's happening with the younger generations is they're wanting to now, even in Africa, they're following up all the stuff we do. So now they're like, we want to be back to our African faiths, but there are mad Christians there that are like, nah, we're not. This is not a colonized form of Christianity. This is just Christianity.
Yeah.
And Christianity has a right to critique my culture.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, to land the plane of this part, the assumption is that Christianity is white, and therefore it's interrupting what I was worshiping before Christianity came, which comes from a slave mentality, because Christianity goes into every culture and critiques it and challenges it and calls for a removal of what's not redeemable, not just in Africa, but everywhere, in Celtic ideology, in Roman mythology, in Greek mythology, in Asian spirituality, in Indian spirituality. But because the problem with us is like, there's such a trauma around blacks in America's relationship with the way Christianity is perceived and branded. And so it's seen as an enemy, not a companion for freedom. And so that's why you can go into another culture and Christianity can go in, transform it, and challenge it. But for us, it's like you're taking something away from us that you're trying to keep away from us because of the trauma of our black identity experience.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
That makes perfect sense. I always like the analogy I use is like, I love Chipotle. It's my like go-to when I just want something tasty, but it's healthy.
Yeah.
And there's been instances when I've gone into a Chipotle and the food was not good. The meat wasn't seasoned well.
Absolutely.
And I was like, what's going on here? The trauma of that experience did not inform me to hate Chipotle.
Absolutely.
It informed me that this Chipotle or these particular workers are not doing it proper representation.
That's what I say. It was a guy in Philly. He was using a hammer on the train to just bash people. He was just going on the train, hitting people. When I needed to hammer some stuff into some wood at my house, I didn't let what I saw on the train affect the tool. I blamed the person that was using it. And so a lot of times blame those, and not all white people did this anyway.
Yeah.
The white people who did it.
Yeah.
Like, blame them for that. Like, not the tool, not Christianity. So
that's really good.
Yeah.
There's another part of this too that she goes in, and I since we on it, I think
no, you good.
You know what I'm saying? Since we on it, I think it's helpful to address. Check this one out. This is a part 2.
Yeah.
I think it has something to do with the real experiences that Christian people have had through their Christian faith, right? Your spiritual experiences are not synonymous with Christianity, though. Y'all don't understand. Christianity is man-made. Your spiritual connection, that way you're able to tap into the spirit realm, the way that you're able to talk to spirit and be able to really feel and use those intuition and all that, that ain't got nothing to do with Christianity. You already had that before Christianity. I have to read y'all King Leopold. Look up King Leopold's letter to the missionaries of Belgium, 1883. Go look that up and just read that. It's like one page. Y'all know the most witches is in the church, right? I don't need Christianity to have a spiritual experiences. I don't need Christianity to be spiritually protected. I don't need Christianity to tap into my gifts. I don't pray to God to beg him to help me. I tap into the God that's inside of me and use the gifts that God gave me.
Interesting.
She told you.
Yeah, I know. She told us, right? One of the things that, when we talk about, Deuteronomy 18, all of those prohibition passages about witchcraft, basically, let me start here. So when you prayed earlier, we're transported to the throne of grace. So there's a overlapping of heaven and earth, the whole, what you call unseen realm stuff, right? When we gather as the saints, there's an overlapping of heaven and earth. When a person is put under church discipline or restored from it, overlapping of heaven and earth. Those are when someone gets saved, there's an overlapping of heaven and earth. Now that you are a temple of the Holy Spirit, you are a walking tabernacle of an overlapping of heaven and earth. In other words, when those are legitimate ways of accessing the spirit realm. If a demon is attacking David, and you go in the room and I say, I command you to leave in the mighty name of Jesus, you're legitimately accessing the spirit realm because you have a spirit guide called Jesus. Because that's legitimate access. When you use witchcraft, you bypass Jesus and you open up an illegitimate door that's unguarded. So everybody can do incantations of witchcraft, but what happens is you're letting in something else. So God is basically saying to you, Jesus said, that's why I am the door to the sheepfold. If you come any other way, they're a thief and a robber. So what people don't understand is witchcraft is robbing your way into the spirit realm, and they don't recognize that the enemy's like, what up, man? What up? I'm glad you let me in. Jesus ain't around here. And he like, let's roll in here. And that's an open door that's created by the enemy. That's why those people in Acts chapter 18 or 19, Acts 19, was burning their books. Those were incantation books because those books were the means that they used to get into the spirit realm. And so in answering her question, she doesn't realize, you can be spiritual. Yeah, you got a God inside of you. It's not the God, but it's something inside of you. And you don't realize that you're illegitimately accessing the spirit realm and you're bringing things into your life that keep you blinded to the gospel.
What is, because a lot of people use the term witchcraft, right? Like, and accessing portals and so on and so forth.
Portals.
But like, what does that look like? Like, what is an example of somebody dabbling in witchcraft?
Yeah, so even if like what we deem, let's just say incantations in general, right? They are universal. Like, it's funny because there are spirit beings over every jurisdiction on earth with sub-spirits under them, based on Ephesians 6, based on Colossians 2. There is global communication between those sons of gods and their minions. If you go to different cultures, you'll see that they worship a different deity but have similar incantations. You use this for this. You notice everybody got a medicine person, and their medicine person is always connected to the spiritual something. They call it a healer or a shaman. They have different names for it because there's an inner. It's no different. You just see what I'm saying? And so when like I was reading this book called I forgot, it was in my Trinitarianism class. It was a good book, but it was talking about how this missionary went into the Amazon to these to these people. I mean, like remote. Like we talking about you got to get dropped off there. You know what I'm saying?
They might spear you. When you get off
you
the
got to
boat.
get dropped off. So he said, man, that he would just observe them. So they would sniff this potion, and that the shaman would make, and they would black out, and they would talk about being in the spirit world, and they would be dancing. You go to parts of Africa, same thing. Like same thing. And so they don't realize, like, that's not merely African. That's not merely your culture. Our culture of what God wanted us to do and create predates that. Adam and Eve was supposed to promote, subdue the earth, and create human flourishing with a connection to Yahweh. And then those sons of God that were over those areas were supposed to be guardians of promoting Yahweh's glory. But when those sons of God fell in Genesis 6 and the other falls that happened, they rebelled against Yahweh. Psalm 82, they rebelled against Yahweh. And now they're like, we're going to be the God of these, and Satan is the God of those gods. So that's why he's called the God of this world, because he's over all of those sons of God, those demons, all those different things. And so that's why and so when we talk about practically what an incantation is, it's a solidified way in which those demons, by doctrines of demons, 1 Timothy 4, have created ways that signal, because I don't believe there's any actual magic in that, in those. I believe that the things that we use in the physical realm are signals that we're committed to connecting to them. So if somebody's burning sage, that's a signal to a spirit. Oh, if they're burning sage and utilizing it in that way of, I want to cleanse this atmosphere and make a Zen environment, the demon says, oh, they're calling me. You know what I'm saying? If you putting salt at the door, talking about it's a protection spell, or you got a dream caster thing over you, that's those things aren't in and of themselves powerful. It's just a signal to that spirit that you're beckoning it.
There's intention.
Yeah,
So
like when we say the name of Jesus, that's a signal for the Holy Spirit to move.
But if my intention, if I don't know Jesus, my intention may say that name just like casually, but my intention is
Shoot, everybody
Right.
called on Jesus when they in
right. No, that's a good question because some people do wrestle with, hey, is this demonic in and of itself, or
Which
is
thing?
it the intention? Like any of the things you mentioned. So let's say I go to Africa and get a mask, but
I know. That's when they. So see, I have African brothers and sisters. Like that's when I would say I don't know, because then I don't like. I think that if something's a crystal, that's just in its natural form. If it's a mask, that's a reflection of something in their culture to call for possession. I just want to leave it alone, bro.
yeah.
I probably just don't even want to figure out if it's redeemable. You know, like some stuff is just like, we ain't got to do all that. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't want to smoke. You feel me?
Yeah. So that was, you know, we had Angela Scavidi, who was a former witch, on the podcast,
Yeah.
and she brought up some things, and you know there was some intense debate about some of the stuff she said in the commentary about yoga, because for her it was like that this is a signal to the demons that, hey, come on.
I've heard people that were into New Age, they have very strong convictions about yoga. But I don't know. That's their thing. Like for me, I'm gonna listen to them. Like because they like for me, it's one thing like denouncing a fraternity is different than somebody that astral projected. You know what I'm saying? That's different. You know what I'm saying? Because this person is saying, you know, downward dog or whatever, you know, the different little joints. This calls for the, and you know what? Let's find another way to stretch. I'm just gonna leave it alone. I'm not saying it is an incantation. For me, this is, you know what I hate about us sometimes? We always we don't want to have no caution. That's the other side of it. Like sometimes, dude, just just have some caution.
Why fight for it if you're not sure?
Why fight for it if you're not sure?
Yeah.
I just be like, just let that one go.
And I ain't gonna lie to you, like people can feel how they want to feel, but since Angela been here, I ain't done yoga again. Because for me, I'm like, I don't know.
Play with it. I don't want to play with it.
That's how I feel.
I don't want to play with it.
I told my wife, she dropped out of her yoga class. Like, yeah, it could be just movements and stretching. It could be signaling and saying, "Hey, what's up, Beelzebub?"
Right.
Like, and I'm not an expert on it.
And I think that people don't know how to tell the difference between Romans 14 and 1 Corinthians chapter 8 and chapter 9. Because like you got this is a liberty stuff. But 1 Corinthians 8 and 9, those aren't liberties. He says you're sacrificing the demons. And so I think, and so when it gets there, he said, you unknowingly, you could be, and so I'm like, man, if there's something that I'm doing that, like I was watching this TV show, this vampire show that used to come on. Loved it. But the witches, it became more about the witches than the vampires at one point. And I don't know why they would be doing them spells. And I had to say, Jesus, 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 Jesus. I'm calling on. I said, if I have to watch TV and have to call on the name of Jesus half the episode, why not just not watch
Leave it
this?
alone.
But it made me feel so uncomfortable. Then I go on TikTok one day, and this woman said, yeah, I was one of the interns that wrote the incantations. And she said, I just went online and looked up some incantations. And I found the ones, and I just would switch a word here and there, but they were actual incantations. They said the production crew got a call from a woman in New Orleans saying, y'all know those are real, y'all can't, why, are y'all crazy? Do you know that these people, they were like curses, like, but she was just using it for words. And she was like, well, I just kept having fun with it. But I knew I wasn't uncomfortable. Like sometimes the Holy Spirit, man, sometimes you don't have a Bible verse for it. Sometimes he just make you feel real uncomfortable, and you should probably just stop it.
I think to summarize a lot of what you said in this time is that a lot of us are really kind of lazy in terms of our like understanding the church, understanding the different dynamics, and we allow, like you said, the algorithm to just feed us the quick bites.
Yeah, because I think Cray, we're older now. And so we've been hearing the same stuff for years. I think people talk about race fatigue. I have Negro stupidity fatigue. I want to cuss. Like, I'm like, these are the same god dang, I'm going to just say god dang arguments I've been dealing with for 40 years. I'm sick of the girl you put. I was just getting exhausted as I was listening to it. It was just draining the life out of me. So I'm like, this has been dealt with 100 times over. But it's just interesting how now that the internet, which is a good thing, can keep information alive longer, it can also promote lies longer. And so I think stuff like this, a podcast that can kind of get into the algorithm, hopefully, and have a life of its own, can be available to constantly challenge some of these things that just chop it up. Because it's like, we after all we've done, we still got people saying Christianity is the white man's religion.
Yeah.
I mean, the Jesus, we worship a white Jesus. Like, we've already told you he wasn't white. He wasn't necessarily blue, black either, but
yeah,
like, bro, like but it's just the devil just hates the true gospel, man. And so I think that the encouragement to me, though, this is the encouragement, is that we got a lethal amount of young cats. I mean, literally, things like Sonetta TV aren't even as popular because of young Christians getting up on their doctrine and beginning to say, Christianity's not like, I can't, it does my heart so good when I see one of those feeds and I'm about to comment and I go down and it's 20 Christians that say, well, Athanasius and Tertullian and Christianity. I'm like, oh, I'm good. You know, we good now because now there's like the knowledge base of a lot of Christians. We got like Christianity is misogynistic. We like, well, first off, the first martyrs in Africa with perpetual felicity, and and it's just like, and they're celebrated for she was pregnant and she was martyred and like, you know, and just being able to tell these beautiful stories about Shenouda and all the Pachomius and all of these OGs that were, you know, that, I mean, can you imagine going to the Council of Nicaea? You're the bishop of Alexandria, Egypt, the largest church in the known world, the most influential, where the earliest manuscripts were transmitted. That's what we use now. You go there and you taking your deacon named Athanasius, and you discipled him so well that you don't have to present an argument against Arianism. But this short, dark complexion, whatever complexion he was, but he's African, got up there and waxed eloquent. I mean, for me, that's beautiful. And then now people are getting connected to the Irenaeuses and all of the different ones. And so I think, not that they were infallible in all that they did, but in the things that were orthodox to move on. I'm excited about. So I'm excited to see, like, you go on a podcast and you like, nah, hold on. See Kurt go on a podcast and hold on. Those who even have those platforms to be able to give some pushback of stuff that we come to know. So it's dope.
All right, but if somebody listens to this episode, what would be 3 books that you would recommend for them if they're like, man, this was so good? Where can I dig and gain more insight?
Of course. 3 quick books. Of course, Urban Apologetics, Volume 1.
By Dr. Eric Mason.
Restoring Black Dignity with the Gospel, that one. I think the next book will be The Whitewashing of Christianity by Jerome Gay. And I think the third one is Thomas Olden's book, the one with Christianity in Africa. Thomas Olden, I'm going to pull it up real quick. It's probably one of the best books you'll read. With these books, Thomas Olden, it is called, How Africa Shaped the Christian Mind.
Okay.
You read that, didn't you?
Yeah, I did read
That's
that.
a good
I read
book.
that. I read that a while ago. I got to go back and tap into that.
That thing just.
Yeah.
And so he said there's so much stuff in Libya.
Yeah,
that didn't even that would just tell the story of Christianity in Africa. They said because Muslims have destroyed so much of it. But yeah, man, it's crazy. Yeah.
I can't thank you enough. Thank you for the wisdom. Thank you for the insight and the enthusiasm. I'm excited about what's going to be aired. I'm more excited to get off the pod and figure out what kind of enthusiasm you about to put me on to, because I already know it's gonna be some shoes, some food.
I just want to know where those rope laces come
these
from.
rope laces. So true story. Tory Lanez was about to go to prison and asked me to come and pray for him, and I said, all right, cool. I went to his crib and we prayed. And his assistant had these laces, and I said, "Them is hard." And he said, "Brother, I'll send you some." He's a believer, actually. So so he hooked me up.
That's what's up.
Yeah,
that's what's up.
So, hey man. So God bless everybody on trial and going through their things. You know what I'm saying? May the Lord speak to y'all. Listen, hey, you know what I mean? We all guilty in Jesus' name, but He can free your soul. I know that much. Yeah,
coming out this fall, Rebranding the Church.
Rebranding the Church.
September 30th.
Okay. Yeah. We excited about that. A book and anything else?
A whole book. A whole book. I'm excited about it. It's a 3-part series I'm writing on Rebranding the Church. So this is going to be fun.
We need that.
The remnant. It's going to be dope. It's going to be dope.
That. Yeah, well, man, thank you again. I appreciate you.
Appreciate you. Thanks for the invite.
This is The Deep End with Lecrae.